everyone, I'm Melanie from Streamline Legal, where we help law firms get the most out of their practice management software. Today I'm talking about custom fields, and my demonstration is going to show Clio's custom fields. However, even if you're not using Clio, I'd encourage you to take a look because these are the same field types that a lot of practice management software uses, a lot of document automation software uses, and so we're going to talk some about the benefits of some of these types of fields and the detriments, so you may want to stay tuned even if you're not using Clio. Now, Clio in particular offers 12 different types of custom fields, and so we're going to go through each one of those and talk a little bit about them. So what I've got here is a matter that I've put together, and you'll see that I've clicked on the Custom Fields tab so that we can take a look at the different types of custom fields that I'm using in this case. And the first one is going to be a checkbox, and that's pretty self-explanatory. It doesn't look like a checkbox on the field here. If you look at client is the custodial parent, that's a checkbox. And we can see when we edit this matter that sure enough under custom fields, it's going to show up as a checkbox. Client is the custodial parent. But of course, when I view it in the matter, it's just going to say yes or no, depending on whether or not I checked it. So that can be a real easy, quick custom field that you can use for a lot of information. And again, usually it's either a yes or a no. That's it, either checked or not checked. So pretty basic. The next one that we come to is called a contact select. What that means is that we're going to go ahead and put in a person or a contact into this matter, but we're not going to write out all the person's information because maybe we already have them in Clio as a contact. And so all we need to do is simply select the correct contact. And so you'll see we've selected Donald Smith. We're not able to write in a name. It does not allow that on a contact select. We simply find the contact within Clio already. And once they're in this matter, now I can click on Donald and it'll bring up all of his contact information as well. So it's a real nice way to connect people to the matter. However, I would encourage you to use it sparingly because if we go back to our original case that we were looking at, unfortunately things didn't work out for Mickey and Minnie, and so they're in the middle of this custody battle and divorce. And so as we look at this case, you'll see that I can add related contacts to the case. And I would highly encourage you to include as many people as possible as related contacts, because when you do that, you could then take a look and see how many cases you've had with them and what roles they played in those cases. If they're just listed as a contact in your contact select, then, whoops, let's go find that case we were looking at, sorry. If they're just listed as a contact in your contact select over here and not as a related contact, then it's not as easy to track if you're looking across, trying to see multiple matters that they might have been involved in. So I would encourage you as often as possible to include people as related contacts, but there may be some rare circumstances where we want them to be a contact select instead. So for example, in this case where it's an emergency contact, so maybe we're not reaching out to this person with any regularity, we don't even really need to know about them unless there is an emergency, in which case we've got their contact information. So that one can be a little tricky. The next one I want to show you is a date. Date, very self-explanatory. Next appointment date, January 17th. They give you a calendar. You can simply pick a date, which is great. But keep in mind, it has to be an exact date. So if you're using a field like a real estate closing and you're supposed to put in the date of the closing, well, maybe the date hasn't been determined yet. And so you know it's going to be sometime in June. Well, if the field is a date, then you cannot write sometime in June. You can only put an exact date. So when you're looking to use a date as a custom field, just be careful that it's a situation where you know that you're going to have an exact date. Or if you don't have an exact date, you can leave it blank, of course, but there is no option to write in the second week of March or sometime in 2019. Those are not options. So then the next one we're going to take a look at is an email address. And so here we've got an email address, again, very self-explanatory, but I do want to point out here that again, if that email address belongs to a particular person, I would much rather include that person either as a contact select or as a related contact on the matter, because chances are you're going to need more than just their email address. You're going to need their name or their phone number or address or how they're related to the matter, their relationship, something like that. Rarely do you ever need just a straight address. And so this is more appropriate in situations like I've used here where we have an email address for e-filing, right? Or maybe it's for, the process serving company or something like that. Something where we may need that address, but it's not necessarily related to a particular person. And so that's when it would be very appropriate to use that email address. We've also got a field that allows for integers or numbers. And in this case, I've used it as a case number. Now, the trick with this field is that make sure you're only using it for numbers, because if your courthouse uses case numbers that include dashes or letters or anything like that, then it's not going to be allowed in the integer field. Integer means only numbers. Can't be a phone number with dashes or parentheses or anything like that. It's just simply numbers. So that does narrow down the use quite a bit. Aside from maybe credit card numbers, I don't know a lot of other numbers that only have number digits in them. And again, unless your courthouse numbers things that way, of course, then that's great. So keep that in mind if you're ever trying to use that integer field. The next one we're going to take a look at is this matter select field. And that's right here where we've been able to go into Clio and find another matter that's related to this case. So as you'll see here, this is a custody dispute. And so what I've gone ahead and done is I've connected their divorce case. In this jurisdiction, they do those things separately in two separate case files. And so I've gone ahead and put in the client's divorce case as well, so that if I need a quick reference over to the divorce case, I can just simply click on that link and it will take me over to the divorce case of Mouse versus Mouse. And so that's a very, very nice feature that Clio has. So back to our custom fields, we just used the matter select. There is an opportunity for you to create a field, which I don't have here, that shows money. And so that can be very helpful. Just keep in mind, if you're using a money field, either in Clio or somewhere else, keep in mind some of them will have decimal points for cents. Some of them will just be dollar amounts. Some of them will include the dollar sign. Some of them will not. And that all becomes very important if you start using these fields in document automation. So let's say that we do have a dollar amount in here and it's $500. Maybe it's a filing fee or something we want to reference in an engagement letter. Then that's great. We can put in our 500, but we need to determine if the dollar sign is not allowed in the field, such as Clio, then we're going to have to put that dollar sign in our template, our document template. So we just need to pay attention to details like that, especially when we're looking at the money field. Then one of my favorite types of fields is called a pick list. And in order to show you this, I'm going to, again, go to edit this matter, because the field we're going to look at is children. And the question is, do they have children? How many children? So I've been able to create what Clio calls a pick list. And I'm going to go ahead and show you, when I'm putting that in, what it looks like. So we've got children down here, and I've selected 2, but we've got other choices. We've got none, 1, 3, 4, however many there are. The reason I really like a pick list is because, again, when you're looking at document automation, it makes it very easy to know what option people are going to choose. If you just give them a line to put in some text and hope that they spell the county name correctly, or hope that they choose an option that's within your document template, then you're putting in a risk for human error. And so instead, if we can be very precise and say, here are the fields you're allowed to choose from, DuPage County, Cook County, McHenry County, that's it. Those are your only 3 choices. Then we can go ahead and know that each time it's going to be selected properly as far as the spelling. There won't be any typos or extra spaces or anything like that. And so I would highly recommend, as often as possible, using those pick lists when there's a limited number of options so that you can avoid that human error. So We'll return back to our matter and the custom fields, and we're going to take a look next. We got 4 left. The next 2 are just text, and so it will allow us to put in a single line text or multi-line text. And so here I've got a single line text here, which is called current visitation, and basically I just wrote it in on a single line of text, Tuesday, Thursday, every other weekend. So simple enough. They also allow for multi-line text, which is great because then it gives us a little more space. So a lot of people will use that for like special notes or things they want on the front page that are going to be maybe a little more descriptive and include sentences as opposed to just information. So that's very helpful if you can put in a multi-line text. And then the last 2 are time. And I have an example of time right here, which we put our next appointment as 4 o'clock, which of course time in and of itself is probably not very helpful. But a lot of times you might put it next to a next appointment date, and that would be helpful, of course. Now, of course, why would you put these as a custom field instead of on the calendar? Well, because if we're going to create documents from our document automation, those cannot come off the calendar. Those have to come out of custom fields, and so that's why we might put them here. And then the last one we have is a web address. And I think this one's really, really helpful. Sorry, that was not a good example. I think this one is really, really helpful in a lot of situations, but one of them is if we want to link from our case management to the court docket. Now, depending on your courthouse, your court's website, their search functions, the way their website works, this may or may not work. But if you can find a web address for the particular case on your court's filing system, then that would be really nice to be able to link to it. So unfortunately, the county that I'm located in does not offer that option. But if it did, it would be super, super convenient to just click on this link and then it would take me straight to the page from the courthouse with the case. Now, again, it's going to depend on how your county's website is set up and how their search function works. But if you can make that work, that would be really awesome. And again, you can link to any other website as well. That was just I thought, really excellent use of that custom field. So I hope this explanation has helped you. Again, even if you're not using Clio, these are the types of fields that you may find in other applications as well. And the idea is to remember the limitations that they have, but then also think of the use scenarios where they lend very well to that type of field. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Hope this helped, and have a great, great evening.